Tim, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
What market trends are you seeing at the moment?
In the Sydney market where we're operating, what we're finding at the moment is still a really high demand for luxury real estate across waterside suburbs. However, we are noticing banks at the moment are putting a little bit of pressure on lending. So the apartment market under $2 million and definitely the housing market for, I'd say, the family moving into that 1.5 to 2.5 market is starting to slow.
Mm-hmm. In your business, what accomplishment are you most proud of in the past year?
I'd say for me it's probably breaking into more of a luxury price range. There was a really interesting sale that I had where a vendor that I was working with had fell in love with a property 4 or 5 years ago, and they said, do you think there was any possibility we could go and get this home? They'd missed out on it at auction. They pulled out an old brochure and I looked at the property and I thought, well, let's give it a shot. And I went and knocked on this door of this quite expensive apartment, and they said, believe it or not, you've come right at the right time, we're moving down south. We ended up selling that apartment for $7.5 million. So it was quite incredible, but the people that bought it were lovely. And now they're a street away from where I live.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, what's your most memorable listing? That sounds pretty memorable.
That one's a pretty good one. I think, look, it's funny, you know, it's hard to sort of pick one sale versus another. I'd probably still say a couple of years ago, I'd say was a property that I took on in Fairlight. It was a beautiful penthouse that was renovated. And I remember I was selling it, and I'd worked for 2 to 3 years to get this amazing listing on the market around $5 million. And right when I launched it, we had, I'm not sure if you remember those ginormous storms about 2015, and it almost wiped out half of Sydney. My first open home, I turned up and half the furniture was sort of like blown off this balcony. And anyway, the interesting fact was we ended up getting a suburb record for it, but we literally sold it in the middle of like a thunderstorm, which was kind of cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what are vendors looking for when they're selecting an agent?
I think now with the market changing, what people are looking for essentially is strategy, the ability to locate people that are not necessarily looking in their suburbs. So I think vendors at the moment are understanding the market shifting, and right now it's about being able to capitalise potentially on finding, whether it be out of area, overseas or international purchases. It's quite relevant in our marketplace.
What's a tip for achieving the best price for a vendor?
I think as a seller, at the end of the campaign or whenever you get to a point where you're accepting an offer, I think you just want to be able to sit there and go, have we done absolutely everything that we can to locate every potential purchaser? So I think maybe that filters into marketing and strategy and all that kind of stuff. But I think for an owner right now, I think if you're getting to that place of accepting or going to auction, you just want to, in the back of your mind, feel that your marketing campaign has located everyone possible.
Well, just on marketing,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it is so important for a vendor to get a successful
Yeah.
sale. Why is that, do you think?
I think marketing, look, I think we've had a really good couple of years. I think in a booming market, obviously there was a lot of hype around real estate or essentially buying property in Sydney and Australia-wide. Right now, marketing is quite crucial to find people that potentially haven't considered your area or your house necessarily. So for us, if I looked at the Manly and Northern Beaches market, a lot of the better purchases are coming out of the lower North Shore, trading in quite luxury homes and then shifting down to the beach. So, you know, I think when you're looking at marketing, it's about, well, how can we uncover people that aren't necessarily looking exactly where you're selling right now?
What's your goal then for every vendor campaign that you run?
Okay, so for mine, it's about return on investment. I think if I'm sitting there with someone, and like, we're talking about quite significant costs, right? So $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in marketing. I want to be able to sit there at the end of the sale or when they're in a position where they're thinking about taking an offer, and in the back of my mind know that I've done absolutely everything I can to find every buyer. I think as well it's about giving them an understanding on how the marketing campaign is working, where the buyers are coming from throughout that process, just so they know the money they've invested, they're getting a return.
How have you generated the most interest in a property? What marketing did you use?
Oh, I'm doing some really fun stuff with video. I do a lot of work with Skyline Creative in the city at the moment, and I think now I always look at it until a buyer puts their foot through the front door. We're a marketing agency, right? So whilst we're servicing and we're selling real estate, effectively we're marketing. So for me, I think video is a really cool space to be hanging out in right now. I think the engagement, especially looking at mobiles and devices, video is a great way to capture a broad audience very quick. So that's a space I'm spending a lot of time in.
46 of the top 50 advertisers in Australia use print advertising.
Yeah.
Print. Why do you think that is?
I think I look at it this way. It's there's passive, and I think passive buying versus direct buying. So you look at your real estate domains, you're online. You know, if someone needs to find a house, they need to find it immediately. That's where they are. what I love about print marketing, it's someone that maybe doesn't have to move straight away, but if that dream home or something that really sparked their interest came up, they could purchase. Some of the biggest, like that apartment I was speaking about previously that we sold in the thunderstorm, the lady that purchased that house saw it in print marketing the day of the tender closing, cancelled a trip to Fiji, walked up to the penthouse, we sold it to her 2 days later. I still think it's very, very relevant. Yeah.
NewsCorpRealestate.com.au often talk about print and digital being a more effective combination rather than in isolation. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, look, I relate it to, there's different ways that people buy homes, cars, everything. I think it's important to have a balance of both. I think, again, print media is a great way to find passive purchasers. So, and not only that as well, I think the ability to be able to market across different areas in print is really crucial. So you look at websites right now, unfortunately, people type in a suburb, they figure out exactly where they want to be and they get quite specific. What I love about print is you can find quite a broad audience. So someone not necessarily thinking they might want to buy in Barrel or Sydney or whatever can locate properties in print, and I see it as a great way to expose properties still today.
8 out of 10 buyers we know use their local newspaper during their move, mainly to get a sense of their new community. How important is local area marketing?
I think it's still very important. And I look at it this way, essentially you don't know exactly where your buyer's coming from, you know. It could be a neighbour that picks up the paper and they've had friends over for a barbecue and goes, oh my God, the Smith's house has come up 3 doors down, we want to ring our friends and tell them about it, which does happen. I think local paper advertising still plays a very big role in making sure that you generate a huge amount of interest. But also as well, it's a balance of having out-of-area advertising in paper mediums too. So I think whatever you're selling, whether it's 1 million or 5 million, at the end of the day, like I mentioned before, at the end of that campaign as an owner, you just want to make sure, you never want to hear we missed someone.
Tim, fantastic to talk to you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.